All right, here is a question from Alex. Alex says, "Hi Tabitha, what's your advice for overcoming financial restriction, financial anorexia? I'm 2 years into recovery and I've been doing really well, literally coming back to life. But one of my biggest hurdles, especially having moved out of my parents' house recently, is the anxiety that spending money causes, particularly on food. For me, there are some valid financial concerns. I'm not allowed to work at the moment, or I'm not able to work at the moment, but overall it seems to be more an obsessive numbers thing, as I get crippling anxiety if I spend more in a specific number that my brain has plucked out the air and decided that that's the limit for the item. And of course, like anorexia, the more I go into the below that limit, the safer and better I feel. It's starting to cause real problems again as it quickly snowballs and creates barriers, restrictions everywhere, not only causing more mental gymnastics and food decisions, but also making me anxious and behave erratically while socializing, limit how often and where I can go, and drive to save money on petrol, parking more out of town to save a couple of pounds on parking, etc. My question is, how do I change this fear of spending money without further fueling number of sessions by budgeting, etc.? In the context of food, I know the way out is to do the opposite action, eat the scariest food, but with money, that's not necessarily possible because there is a genuine threat that I could spend too much and run out of money, especially the cost of living increasing. Any advice that you would have as much appreciated? Yeah, well, I had everything that you described as when it came to money. It was awful, and it was just like another thing on top of the calorie counting, on top of the compulsive movement, on top of all of the other obsessive stupid shit I did. This was just another thing to pile on top of it. So, and the problem with a lot of these things is like your obsessive crap sort of conflicts with each other and fights with each other. So I'd have the orthorexia element, of course, to my eating disorder, but then healthier, quote unquote, food is more expensive than what we would consider to be less healthy food. A lot of the time it is marketed as more expensive, and buying organic food is more expensive than buying non-organic food. So my orthorexia would want me to buy the organic whatever it was, but my financial restrictions would want me to buy the cheaper one, whatever that was, and then they just argue. It would be like going back and forth. It's just exhausting. Everything about having eating disorder is so exhausting, and that was just another thing that piled on top of it. But you do have to treat it exactly the same as the way that your brain is with calories and all other restrictions. And I hear you that you're saying that, well, you can't just go around spending all the money in the world because you don't have all the money in the world, but you've got to get as close to it as you can, and you've got to sort of look at, well, actually, what is the most amount that I can spend today on this item? So whatever it is, the item that you're planning on buying, if there is, and I'm sure that there is an upper limit on how much you have to spend, you've got to make yourself hit it. Go over it, even if you can afford to somewhat. But what you're currently doing is you're still doing that thing where you're going under it, and that's not going to get you anywhere. So there is work that you can do within the constraints and the boundaries that you have. You're not currently hitting even your budgetary limit, are you? You've got to actually get yourself up there. And then you've got to see where there's more wiggle room. Where are the little things? Because a lot of the time, it's not actually massive, expensive things that we need to go buy, that we don't go and buy. For me, it was the little things. Like if you're buying toilet paper, don't buy the budget one. You know what? You can afford the extra couple of quid that it costs to buy the nice, luxurious stuff, and your bottom deserves it. So think a bit like that. You don't actually have to be spending wild amounts of money to be really challenging the financial restriction that you feel and that you suffer. You don't need to buy Tesco value all of the time. You know, there are some things that actually you can spend a couple more quid on, and it's not going to break the bank, is it? And that's the sort of limits that you have to hit. And if you know that when you know when you know, I'm being a bit tight here and I could actually afford to spend more. And it's in those moments when you know I could actually afford to spend more and I'm choosing not to. That's where you have to change your choice. Like in that moment, it's exactly the same as when you know you want to eat more and you're not really letting yourself, and you have to change your choice in that moment. All right, I hope that helps. Bye.